The budget was a stroke of genius. It was to create a deficit that never existed in the first place. So, on the one hand, the people that thought there was going to be this big black hole are now not feeling the damage spent by 22 million on raising the child cap, because 22 million was missing. Now 22 million is not missing. It makes people angry at the government, but not necessarily angry at the fact that they've just spent 22 million on benefits. And that would be the bottom figure, because benefits only go that way because of obvious factors. So not only that, but they've taken away from old people and that when they got into power. And we've always said this is odd. This is a government that relies on people being on benefits. But they got into power. They took money from old people. They took money from disadvantaged people. And what they're doing now is, under the guise of helping children, what they're actually doing is, it's genius. They've made you think there's a hole purely so that when there wasn't one, you don't get so angry about them spending on benefits. They planned the whole time to spend 22 billion, not on benefits, but on a specific type of benefit. The one that benefits the people who don't work and have kids. But more to the point, there weren't that many of them in our system. There were a few, but there weren't that many. It benefits people coming here. The 70%, this is an actual fact, the 70% of Muslim women that do not work but do have a godzillion children. That's exactly where it benefits. And for those of you that thought Starmer could not win another election, for those of you that thought the next election was a dead cert, I submit to you that not only is Starmer already sowing the seeds of the future, quite literally in some cases, but also in terms of the children coming up and voting, but also in terms of the people voting right now, because some of them are going to know that voting him out will cost them a lot of money. It's now got to the point where this budget has changed things so that if you have children, it is now better for most people not to work on most wages than it is to work. That's the change that's been made to the benefit system. If you've got children and you're sort of you're working class to average middle class, you'd be better off not working. That's what they've just done in one click of the fingers. That's what they've just done to the benefit system. And again, the black hole also showed you the lack of spending they put in every other area. They put nearly the full amount straight on one benefit. So again, they've taken benefits off people. They've taxed things they shouldn't have done. They've made people who are already on benefits pay council tax. They've stripped benefits bare for the people who need them, and for the people who haven't even had those children yet, who could prevent that, is my point. That's why he had the child cap, is that they, in a country that's constantly aware of we've been under 30 years of austerity that's never ended, and yet we can talk about a 22 billion pound black hole that's going to break the country, and then in the very same flick we can spend 22 billion on raising a child cap that nobody asked to be raised. Isn't it amazing? A government that can ignore petitions, a government that can ignore protests, a government that can ignore all this, and the things that nobody's asking for, they champion. And if you look on X every day, they're on there celebrating the things that they've done, as though they've reinvented the light bulb and saved lives at the same time, when nobody's asking for the things that they're doing, and nobody feels benefited by it. Some people will. We know who they are, and unfortunately, they come from a certain demographic, even the female part of that demographic, and it's not accidental. And again, in the future, it will pay dividends for anybody that got them there, and we will literally be outvoted in the long term or mid-term future, in the short-term future, do you think they're going to take the risk of voting out the party that enabled them to maybe 10 grand off better a year, depending on what kids they've got, maybe made it so they don't have to bother going to work anymore? Do you think they're going to vote them out? So I submit to you that maybe the Labour Party is not dead. Maybe the budget was a stroke of genius, from a scumbag perspective, and maybe the budget has kept Labour Party alive. I'm not certain of that, and I hope I'm wrong, but it was genius, because it shut one side up, because at least they were relieved that the hole wasn't there, angry but relieved, and the other side, yeah, they just like the benefits part itself just sort of slipped out there. People are talking about it, but not in the way they should be. The black hole, even though everybody knows the black hole is bullshit now, even so, it took so much time and energy discussing it that it still managed to take the attention off where it should have been. They get away with it every time. Anyway, I'm Tom Fury. This is Zero News. Calling it a day for now.